Guys, I just rewatched Owl's Moving Castle and I loved it. It was a twist even to myself because I have been telling everyone that the book was so much better ever since I read it and that it didn't compare to the movie, and then I was salty about the movie. And today I just finished rewatching the movie and I really liked it. I am disappointed even in myself. I was going to do a video talking about even though I liked the movie before, I loved the book so much more that I wanted to talk about how the book was so much better than the adaptation, and I ended up liking it. So now I have to talk about my love for both of them. I'm very disappointed. Well, this video will be focused more on the movie, but it will contain some spoilers for the book. Actually, a lot of spoilers for the book. So if you plan to read the book and you don't want any spoilers, maybe you don't watch this video. Not yet, at least. People usually like one or the other when they are exposed to both stories, and I just appreciated the movie so much more after reading the book, somehow. So yeah, and I want to talk about that. This video is divided in 4 parts, so I'm going to talk about my first impressions that I still remember from the first time I watched the movie years ago before reading the book. The characters, I want to talk about the nods to the book readers that are in the book, that are in the movie, sorry, that I noticed. Maybe there is more, but these are the only ones that I've noticed now that I've rewatched it. And I want to talk about the overall story. So, I was thinking maybe I should organize my thoughts because I just finished watching the movie, but you know what? If I let this moment pass, now that I'm excited to talk about it, I will never do it in the same way because now is when I want to do it. If I let this moment pass, I know it will be gone forever. It will not come back. So I'm going to film this video today. This movie. I'm a movie maker now. I'm going to film this video today, and I hope you enjoy it. I have my tea that you can see because it's out of frame. I have my books with me. I look like an old lady, and I have my notes because I'm a forgetful human being. When I first watched the movie years ago, I liked it. I liked it alright. I didn't love it. The visuals were very beautiful, as usual for Studio Ghibli, and I really liked the music. But I always felt like the first half felt like a different story from the second half. And by second half, I mean after the stairs scene, the one with Sophie and the Witch of the Waste climbing the stairs. After that, I felt like the movie was a completely different story. And I was sort of right about that. I realized that after reading the book. So the first half of the movie actually follows the book more or less, but then it starts to take its own turns and become its own thing in the second half. That didn't bother me as much this time, but I will talk about that later. Another thing that bothered me was Owl in the bath scene. So Owl felt like a completely different character in that scene in the movie, and I always wondered why this is it. Why is this happening? Why it looks so different? And the reason is because it is a bit out of character for Owl in the movie, but is completely in character for Owl in the book. That owl you see in the bath scene from the movie, it's book Owl. He's always like that. He's always a big drama queen. Even his voice changes completely in the movie, and I was like, who is this guy? did the spells do something to him besides changing his hair color? But no, it's just a scene from the book that they didn't consider that it would be so out of place in the movie, I guess. And I guess other people don't think it's out of character, but I felt very much that it wasn't the same composed guy that looks very chill that was shown to us before that scene. Another one was, I was wondering what was the purpose of the Witch of the Waste in the second half of the movie. She didn't seem to do much. I didn't get why she was hanging out with the main characters. And also, why is Justin here? What is he doing here? What was his goal? What is his story? I don't know. Justin is the scarecrow, by the way, that just appears in the, at the end of the movie, like in his actual form. And it's just like, hey, I'm a prince. Okay. So he is more relevant in the book, so we'll talk about that. So those were my first impressions of the movie even before I read the book, and those things always bothered me, and I didn't know why. And some of it is because, you know, it's a book adaptation. The book just did more things with these scenes than what was done in the movie. But I'll talk about that later when I'm talking about the story. Let's start with the characters. Sophie Ether in the book has red hair. Not that is important, but I know some people complain about everything, including hair color. So she has red hair in the book, okay? And her no-nonsense attitude is way more visible, noticeable in the book. It's a bit, her personality is a bit toned down for the movie, and she seems a lot more kind. Sophie in the book is the kind of person that throws wheat killer at Owl if she is angry. I can't imagine movie Sophie doing that. So it's that kind of thing. She is way more impulsive and, you know, more upfront with her emotions in the book. She's a witch in the book. You can argue for it in the movie, I think. In the book, it's clear that she has power, and her power is to basically talk to objects, and they will do what she wants. Sort of. It's more complicated than that, but that's the gist of it. So in the movie, I don't think she is. At least it's not made clear. You can argue that she is making herself old, like she is in the book, but I think it's more of the curse put on her by the Witch of the Waste that somehow didn't lift when the witch lost her powers. I think that makes more sense than saying that Sophie is a witch and is doing this to herself in the movie. It makes a lot of sense in the book, but it wouldn't make sense in the movie from what was shown to us, I think. In both cases, the curse is connected to her confidence. She says in the movie that one of the advantages of being old is that you have nothing to lose. And when she says that, she becomes an old lady again. Like she there's one part in the movie where she starts switching between young and old, and then when she says that and she's conformed with what she thinks is the reality, and she feels safe in that form of an old lady. That's true for both the movie and the book. She feels more comfortable in that old lady body than her own. She feels like she has more freedom, and she gains more courage because of that. In the book, it's a bit more in depth, I think, because in the book it's also because she's afraid of being a woman walking down the street. She is a bit afraid of the male gaze and of the attention, because she is described as good looking, kind of good looking in the book. So she's a bit anxious about all of that, and as an old lady, she feels like she has more freedom. No one treats her the same way. There is not this fear, and the kind of attention is different. So yeah, she feels more comfortable in her old lady form. While in the movie, it's not clear that it's because of that. I don't think it's even because of that. The way she breaks her curse is gaining confidence and being comfortable in her own body and having the courage to face the world like that. That's basically the message. Um, so yeah, that's Sophie Atter. And then we have Owl Jenkins, or Owl Pendragon. So this guy, when he was young, he had black hair. Then he dyes his hair by magic as blonde, and it is different in the movie and the book. But I think it's interesting, that difference. In this case, the hair is important. So in the book, after the bad scene, he has pink hair for some days, and then it reverts back to being blonde. While in the movie, he gets black hair after the bad scene. So I feel like the movie is trying to say, like, it got black hair because its original form. As a young child, before the curse, he had black hair. So it's like the curse is going to be broken, and he is going to revert back to who he was, who he truly is. I think that's the visuals the movie was going for. And in the book, it's more like, oh, he's comfortable now. He's comfortable in his looks. It's like he likes having his blonde hair. But he gets really pissed when he first sees the pink. And I think um, this is to show the acceptance of his looks, because the day after that old drama and the green slime, he's like, oh, I actually sort of like this color, and he's okay with the pink hair now. So I think that was showing already that his acceptance on different looks, like him not caring as much as he used to before meeting Sophie, because that's one of his main characteristics, is being very, very conscious of his looks and paying too much attention to his looks. It is shown more in the book than in the movie, but it's still there. In the movie, the guy that talks to Sophie on the street is actually Book Owl. And Book Owl, uh, movie Owl, I mean, saves Sophie from Book Owl basically in the movie, because that guy says exactly the same lines that Owl does in the book to Sophie. And in the book, Sophie saves herself, like she gets out of there. It's not safe, like she wasn't really in danger or anything. She just gets out of there herself, while in the movie, Owl comes to her rescue. Very dashing, very charming. Nothing like Book Owl. Is also a bird boy in the movie. That doesn't happen in the book. Calcifer also implies that if the curse isn't broken on time, Owl will become a monster forever and will stay in that form forever. It is very Beauty and the Beast of them in the movie. That is not in the book. No such thing. In both stories, is a coward. That's his main flaw. I mean, in the book is also very much vanity, but that is not as central in the movie. Another thing in the book is that it comes from our world. More precisely, he is from Wales, and he also is a rugby player. And he escaped to another world to become a wizard, which honestly, same, would do the same, is in the right. Then there is Markle, which in the book is called Michael Fisher. In the movie, he is a young kid, and I actually like a lot that he disguises himself as an old man to go receive the customers. I think that's really cute and endearing. That is not true in the book, because in the book, Michael is described as a tall, dark teenager. So, because of that description, I always imagined him completely different from the one in the movie. I imagined him with dark skin, dark hair, dark eyes, and is taller than Sophie. Is described as being an head taller than Sophie, and is, like in the movie, is an apprentice of Owl. Is trying to learn spells and stuff like that. While in the movie he's more like a sort of companion to Sophie, he doesn't do much. He has a bit more plot in the book, and he also teaches Sophie some stuff about how magic works and stuff, and magic objects and things like that. He's a bit of, not really a mentor, but he shows her some of the things in Owl's life. He helps Sophie understand Owl better. He and Calcifer, actually. Speaking of Calcifer, he is very similar in the movie. He is very different, however, in his looks. He looks very cute in the movie, while in the book he is described as a blue flame. He has green hair and green eyebrows. He has orange eyes and he has a purple mouth. He looks much more like a fire demon than he does in the movie. In the movie, he just looks like a cute little fire. But the personality is very similar, pretty much the same. Not much to add. He keeps giving Sophie clues during the book, and Sophie keeps missing all the hints, which is actually really funny because Calcifer is always so exasperated by that. Then there is the Witch of the Waste, which has a great design. That's the thing that I noticed most about her, is that she has a great design. She curses Sophie in the movie. The movie makes it seem, in the movie and in the book, sorry, the movie makes it seem like it was because of Howl, because of jealousy, but in the book it's because she is afraid that Sophie would become a better witch. She knows Sophie is a witch and she has power, and she doesn't want any competition. She wants to be the only witch, so she just puts a curse on her. In the movie, when Sophie finds the witch again, when she's going to meet Suleiman, the witch starts to become very old very quickly, because Suleiman takes away her powers and returns her to her actual age. So she is very old and she ages very quickly. So after talking with friends, because I never knew why this character changed her personality so much in like that so quickly, and actually it made sense. Like it's her physical body and her mind changed very quickly, got old very quickly. And one of my friends actually said that she believes that the witch has Alzheimer's, which actually makes a lot of sense, because while she is getting old and she's walking with Sophie, Sophie says to her that she's called Sophie Pendragon because she's pretending to be Owl's mother, and Owl goes by Pendragon in there. So, and the answer of the witch that has known Owl for a long time is, oh, where did I hear that name before? Which shows that she was already losing her memory, kind of. she already didn't know, and then Sophie lies to her and says, oh, it was the name of my shop, the head shop she used to work in. And the witch was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's basically what happened. And yeah, it's already showing that she's losing a bit of her memory, that she doesn't remember things as much as before. And I don't know if it's just old age. Anyway, it's that is the explanation for that I never got before rewatching the movie. I also watched this movie so many years ago that I didn't remember a lot of stuff. Also, the line that Sophie says about being an old lady and having nothing to lose, which is not true really, but that line that she says also could be applied to the Witch of the Waste in that scene that she's smoking very chill in the living room while there is a bombing outside. So yeah, she's right there, not really paying much attention to what's going on around her really. Stony Pet, or the Scarecrow. So in the book, everyone is scared of the Scarecrow and trying to get rid of him. In the movie, is hanging out with them all the time and helping with the laundry. So it's a very different take in that manner. Also, as I said before, the Scarecrow is Justin under a spell. The Prince Justin under a spell. While in the book it was just a scarecrow that was enchanted. It was actually enchanted by Suleiman, Wizard Suleiman, in order to go search for help. But yeah, so that's a bit of a difference. There is a connection with Prince Justin and the scarecrow, but is not the prince under a spell. Also, his spell is broken by a kiss, a true love's kiss, which fine. It's another fairy tale thrown in there besides Beauty and the Beast. It's fine. But the ending when he's transformed back and he says, oh, I'm going to tell my father to stop this ridiculous war. I was like, so maybe this war started because he disappeared. He was under a spell and he was trying to break it in order to come back to his country, to go back to his country. I mean, but yeah, maybe that's the reason the war started. Otherwise, I don't know why he's here. So I sure hope that's the reason. One of the reasons why they are fighting each other, the countries, I mean. Then there is the dog. In the book, the dog was actually Suleiman. It had Suleiman's mind in the body of a dog, while in the movie he belonged to Suleiman. In the book, Suleiman is not against Owl. They actually used to know each other. They were both wizards, and actually he disappeared along with Prince Justin, and the king is after Owl because he wants Owl to help search for them, both the wizard Suleiman and Prince Justin. So the villain per se of the movie is more Suleiman. She's the one after Owl. She wants to take Owl's power and stuff like that. While in the book, the villain is the Witch of the Waste and her demon. So there's that difference there. That's why the second half is so different from the book. But I think the overall message in both stories is the same, besides being presented very differently. But I will talk about that later. The nods I noticed to book readers that were in the movie. First of all, this one has to be notes because I'm not gonna remember them all, let alone be in order if I don't look at this. So, when Owl meets Sophie in the movie, a guy is telling her not to be afraid, and he calls her little mouse. In the book, this guy is Owl. That's Sophie's first encounter with Owl in the book. He calls her little mouse and tells her not to be afraid of him. But of course, she is very anxious and she is very afraid. Anyways, and she basically goes away, tells him to leave her alone, and goes away. And he's like, okay. While in the movie, Owl basically rescues her. In both stories, Calcifer is holding the castle together. In the movie, this is presented brilliantly visually, with the castle looking like it's falling apart. That was actually a really good design. The spell with the drawing of a shooting star that Owl notices, and it's put on Sophie's pocket by the witch, is actually very similar to the one in the book. That is a homework that gets into Michael's hands, that is from our world, Owl's world, and that was sent by the demon, the other demon, the one that works with the witch. And the spell, it goes like, go and catch a falling star, get with child a mandrake root, tell me where all past years are, or who cleft the devil's foot. Teach me to hear the mermaid sing, or to keep off envy's stinging, and find what wind serves to advance an honest mind. This was actually a prophecy, sort of prophecy, like it was more like a warning, same as it is in the movie. In the movie, it's the witch sending a message to Owl to say that she's going to steal his heart and eat his heart, and in the book is just a warning saying that she's going to fight him and stuff like that, because in the book there is a magical fight between Owl and the witch, and there are mermaids around and stuff like that. So it's sort of a prophecy, but not really, because I mean, the witch is basically saying what's going to happen to him. Then in the book, everyone goes near the water to watch this fight. I just mentioned the magical fight between Owl and the Witch of the Waste. While in the movie, it is a bombing that is happening. Everyone is goes near the water to watch this bombing that is destroying ships. In the book, the ships are destroyed because of the fight between the two magical people. In the movie, Sophie, this was my favorite probably. Sophie initially thinks that the dog is Owls in disguise, and in the book, it's actually Owl in disguise. There is a scene where Owl disguises himself as a dog in the book. Not the same scene, but it's there. So I thought that was very interesting. In the movie, it's not Owl. He disguises as someone else, not a dog. But I thought it was very funny actually. Because it reminded me of the book. Maybe I like the movie so much this time because there are so many things that remind me of the book I love so much. So how could I not? Then there is Suleiman mentions that the demon consumed the Witch of the Waste, so there is a nod to Miss Angorian that is more relevant in the book and has a bigger role. That was also very entertaining, even though she's just summoned. Some demon is consuming her. She also did a deal like Owl did, stuff like that. But Miss Angorian isn't mentioned by name or appears or anything, which actually is better because the movie already has so many things going on that adding more characters would just mess with it. I think it was a good decision not to add all the characters from the book, since the plans for the movie were very different. So now we get to the overall story. In the book, Sophie goes on a journey to change her situation because she lives in a land that everyone is supposed to have a role, and she as an older sister is supposed to keep the shop and keep running that shop. That was her father's, the head shop. In the movie, it is because she wants to break a curse, and she is set on the right way to break a curse by the witch when she says to send her compliments to Howl. So she is already telling Sophie that the way to break her curse is to find Howl. While in the book, she just happens to come across the castle. It's not really planned or anything. I preferred the visual of the castle in the movie. It was very different in the book. According to Diana Wynne Jones, which is the author of the book, it is a tall and thin structure made of black blocks, and the interior is similar to living inside of a chimney. So the important aspect to maintain in the castle is that it looks a bit threatening. It's supposed to look weird and dangerous, and I think it accomplishes that in both stories. But I really like the creativity that went into the design of it for the movie. I like the dynamic between Owl and Sophie much more in the book. They were sweet. They were very sweet in the movie, but I actually prefer the banter they have going on in the book. I think the dynamic is way more interesting, and their flaws are way more at the top. And the fact that they fall in love with each other, even with all of those flaws showing, is just, I love it so much more. But they were very cute in the movie too, so if I think of them as a bit of different characters or an alternative dimension or something like that, I'm fine with it. I like the creepy shunt as Owl transforms when he's running away from Suleiman. That was very creepy and I liked it very much. In the movie they don't mention another dimension, they don't mention our world or Wales or Rapey. There's nothing like that, which I liked in the book, but actually would agree that it didn't fit with Miyazaki's vision for this story. It would look very out of place. It made sense in the book, even though I know some people don't think so, but to me it made sense because it's where Owl's family is, and a lot of importance is given to family in the story, especially in the book. In the movie, the Witch of the Waste is after Howl's heart. She wants to eat Owl's heart, like I think it's in the same way that there is this rumor that Owl hits the heart of young girls. The same must go for the witch. While in the book, she actually wants Howl's head because she wants to add it to her Frankenstein's monster creation. And that she made with different body parts from Justin, the Prince Justin, and Wizard Suleiman. So that's why they are missing. There's actually a really cute thing that is Sophie opens the door and to the past in the movie and sees Howl as he was when he was swallowing the falling star, and how he got cursed, how he made the deal with Calcifer. And the last thing she says to that version of Owl is to wait for her, or in the future or something like that. And I think one of the first things that Owl says to Sophie is that he looked for her everywhere. Of course, that's a thing to distract the other guys, to make them think that they know each other. But at the same time, he's like, does he remember? I think it's really cute if he does. That's just an extra bit of sweetness for those two, which were very cute in the movie. While in the book, they are cute in a different way. Like, Owl's curse is broken by falling in love with Sophie, and in the book, um, this is because he goes to try to rescue Sophie from the Witch of the Waste, and he looks like a mess. He looks like a complete mess. And this is meaningful because Michael and Calcifer said to Sophie before that they would only believe that Owl was really in love. He has a reputation as a womanizer in the book. Then again, the flaws. He has a lot of flaws in the book, not really in the movie. And Michael and Calcifer tell Sophie that they will only believe that Owl is really in love with someone the day that he stops caring so much about his appearance. So him appearing looking like a complete mess to save Sophie was really cute. In a very different way. In that way you just see the dynamics between these two. Like, the way they express their love for each other is very different. I also want to say that while the book is about adding people to the family, the movie is more like a found family, which I liked much more. Another LGBT plus person that loves the found family trope. What a surprise! But yeah, in the book, Fanny comes back to Sophie and apologizes, and Sophie accepts that, and she also thinks that maybe she misinterpreted Fanny's actions in the beginning of the book. This doesn't happen in the movie. The movie is actually a bit darker in this aspect, that Fanny goes there, but only under Suleiman's orders, so the apology wasn't sincere. It isn't shown as much what she does to Sophie. Also in the movie, it is more spelled out in the book. But Fanny goes there just to put like a spy, a little warm spy from Suleiman in the house. So the apology isn't even sincere. Fanny doesn't really care about Sophie. Fanny is her stepmother, by the way. I also forgot to mention that. So family, the real family, like the ones that are connected by blood, aren't really as important in the movie as they are in the book. In the book, Owl still cares for his family, even though his sister treats him very badly and thinks he's a good-for-nothing man. Doesn't really want to see him, doesn't really want him to visit her or something like that. She thinks he does nothing of his life, and he's just a very famous wizard in another world. But one of my favorite scenes in the book is actually when Sophie just takes Owl away from her because she can't stand to hear his sister talking to him the way she does. So yeah, a lot of importance given to family, even if they don't deserve it. While in the movie, it's more of a found family. Like, you even have the Witch of the Waste hanging out with them, and not everyone is happy about it. But at the same time, they are like, you are family now. Like, Owl spells it out in the movie. Is like, oh, I never thought these two would make part of my family. And then there is this scarecrow. These two, meaning the witch and the dog, and then there is this the scarecrow too. But yeah, they are a little family, and I think that is very sweet. While in the book is more like they all become a family, but it's also they just become part of the family that already existed. Like even Michael ends up marrying one of Sophie's sisters. That was part of his plot, and Suleiman also marries the other. So everyone keeps in the family. But in the movie, it's not related by blood. It's not through marriage or anything. They are just a family with all their troubles and stuff like that. I see stuff like that a lot. But yeah, um, even Justin, Prince Justin, when the curse is broken, he promises to come back after telling his father to end the war. So giving again this idea that they did become a family. I mean, it says that, but what is the Scarecrow doing here? Why did he pick Sophie or Owl maybe to break his curse? It's not that well explained. A lot of things are not as explained as it should have, but they don't need to be. I accept that. It's just that the book made such a wonderful job to putting it all together that when I see the same thing not being done in the movie, I'm like, what was the purpose of this? But oh well, I accept it. Okay, you can stay, Justin. It's fine. So what else? Oh, the book is more cozy and funny, and there are a lot of characters that didn't show up in the movie. Which once again, I think it was a good idea because the book looks a bit more episodic. Like there are little things happening here and there. It's just a mix of creativity happening there, and they are connected to each other, but they don't seem to be at first. It's a very interesting book. I liked both stories a lot because of their similarities. Both stories are about love and family and finding confidence in yourself and your own abilities, but they go about it in different ways. And no way is better than the other, as long as the message in the end is still the same. And I think the movie, despite thinking it differently the first time I watched it, I think the movie actually kept true to this message, and that is the most important thing. And actually, in the case of the family, I think it did it better because I mean, Fanny doesn't come back. She's really forgiven. Like, and where is the family of all the other characters? Justin wants to come back to them despite having a kingdom to run. So, you know, someone shared on Tumblr an interview with Diana Wynne Jones that was part of a Kindle edition, and I'm going to put the link on the description. She talks about the movie in this interview, and I think there is a very interesting thing that she says about the war being more important in the movie than it is in the book. That, like, it's only touched upon in the book. You know it's happening, but you don't get much information about it. And what she says is, Miyazaki and I were both children of World War II, and we seem to have gone opposite ways in our reactions to it. I tend to leave the actual war out. We all know how horrible wars are. Whereas Miyazaki, who feels just the same, has his cake and eats it, representing both the nastiness of a war and the exciting scenic effects of a big bombing raid. I do prefer her approach. I also think we already know how awful wars are, and we don't need to hear the same message over and over again. That is one of my problems with war stories. If you've been here, if you know me, you know I have a problem with war stories because of this. The only person that makes me read them for some reason is Joe Abercrombie. I mean, I know the reason is because he has really good characters, but either way, usually I don't like war scenes and stuff like that in any kind of medium. So, yeah, and This is one of my favorite books of all time. Howl's Moving Castle, that is. And the book is actually now in my top 5 Studio Ghibli movies, which it wasn't before. I thought the movie was just okay, and now it's part of my favorites. That's all I have to say about the book and the movie of one of my favorite stories of all time. See you next time. Bye.